Hi foodie friends, my name is Jessica Ann with Savory Experiments, and today we are making arepas con queso with a delicious chimichurri sauce. But before we get started, make sure that you subscribe, like, and comment on all of our videos so you don't miss anything. They come out every single Wednesday. So arepas, what are they? They are Colombian and Venezuelan corn cake. They're made with a base of masa. Masa flour is a corn flour that can come in white or yellow, but it's actually a pre-cooked cornmeal. So regular cornmeal is a little bit coarser. This one is nice and soft and fluffy and the same texture as an all-purpose flour, but naturally gluten-free. So this is a gluten-free friendly recipe. We are starting with 4 cups of masa flour. This is a yellow masa, even though it looks a little bit white. 1 cup of cojita cheese. This is a crumbly Mexican style cheese. Has a little bit of salt in it, so it's gonna give the corn patty some flavor. Okay. We have 3.5 cups of warm water. That warm water is key because it is going to help activate the flour and melt the cheese a little. It's also gonna make some fun bubbling sounds. Okay. 1/4 cup, which is a 1/2 stick of unsalted butter. Because the cheeses we use in this are so salty, we wanna make sure that we are in control of the salt, so definitely use an unsalted butter. If you do use a salted butter, omit the additional 1 teaspoon of coarse kosher salt. If you are using a fine salt, make sure you go down to a 1/2 teaspoon because it's gonna be a little bit saltier. Okay? Going to whisk this together as best you can. I like to start with a whisk and then move to a spoon. In the beginning, it'll be a bit pasty, and then you'll start to feel the whisk give you some oomph. A little bit of, look at that, a little bit of chunk. This is the point where we move over to a spoon. You probably could have just started with a spoon, but I'm a woman of habit, and that's how it goes. Get out of there. Okay, so now we've got the spoon. Mix this dough together until it becomes the consistency of Play-Doh. That is when you know that it is ready. And when that happens, we're gonna cover it and let it sit for about 10 minutes. This gives all of that masa time to absorb the liquid and get to the right texture and consistency to form the arepa patties. If you don't let it sit long enough, you're gonna have a super sticky dough, then you're gonna have to add too much flour to form them, and then you're gonna have dry arepas, and nobody wants a dry arepa. Our dough is like a homemade Play-Doh. Good texture, good consistency, but a little bit sticky, but it's not totally sticking to my fingers. Nothing better than a cheese-laced dough, am I right? Okay, cover it with a towel. This just helps keep in some of the heat that you had from that warm water. Let it sit for 10 to 15 minutes and we'll be back to form our arepas. While these arepas sit and rest, I'm gonna go ahead and whip up a chimichurri sauce to serve with them. The base of any chimichurri sauce is a lot of green, and ours has about 2 cups of flat leaf parsley, not curly, sometimes called Italian parsley, and cilantro. If you are one of the unfortunate people that has the DNA that cilantro tastes like dirt or dish soap, go ahead and use 3 cups of parsley. You don't need to have all leaves. You can have a few stems in there. It's not gonna make a huge difference because we're gonna blend it on up. But don't get any of the huge woody pieces in. Okay. We have 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, but we all know how I feel about garlic. You measure that with your heart. So those are 4 very large cloves. Before we add any of the liquid, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a few pulses to get the garlic and the leafy greens chopped up. It's like I've never used a food processor before. Perfect. So your blend might have a little chunks of garlic in it, and that is fine. Chimichurri is supposed to have some larger chunks of fresh garlic in it. But won't that be too garlicky? Not so much, because we're gonna add oil and vinegar, and the vinegar is gonna help pickle the garlic, so you'll get a nice garlic flavor without it being too pungent. I'm gonna go ahead and pour in 1/2 cup of olive oil. This is a good extra virgin olive oil, just like you would use for a salad dressing. In fact, you can use chimichurri as a salad dressing. And 1 to 2 tablespoons of a red wine vinegar. I really love the tang of vinegar, so I add in 2 tablespoons and go ahead and pulse it again. This chimichurri looks a little milky, which means that it is emulsified. That oil and vinegar is blended together nicely, and that means it is ready to move over to your mixing bowl. No chimichurri left behind, folks. I like to get it all out. So I've got a spatula. Now we are ready to season it. I like my chimichurri to be a little bit on the spicy side, so I'm gonna use some crushed red pepper flakes. But if you don't want spicy and you want a pure herbal earthy tone to it, omit these chili flakes. Half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, depending on how hot you like it. About a half a teaspoon of freshly ground pepper. I'm eyeballing this one. And also about a half a teaspoon of coarse kosher salt, which I will also eyeball. Okay, mix that up. Cover and chill it for 5 to 10 minutes, although you can totally make this sauce ahead of time, days ahead of time. Just give it a nice stir before you serve it. You wanna let those flavors marry. They're basically infusing the olive oil with the earthy tones of the herbs, that garlic, and the crushed red pepper. Chimichurri sauce can be used for so many things. It is really a versatile condiment. I like it on grilled steak, grilled chicken, fish, veggies. It can be a salad dressing. You can use it as a dipping sauce. Really anything that needs a little extra oomph to it. And there you go, our chimichurri sauce is done. Let's go cook those arepas. Okay, the dough has been sitting for about 10 to 15 minutes. Let's give it a check. Yep, perfect consistency. A little bit sticky still, but that's fine. That's why we've got extra flour. So I have some extra masa here. I'm gonna spread that around on my workspace. Okay, we've got our masa all spread out here, and we have our filling. This is part mozzarella cheese, which is typically thought to be an Italian cheese, but commonly used in arepas because it is the perfect stretchy cheese, and everybody wants to pull it apart and get that nice cheese pull, right? And then we also have a queso fresco, which is a crumbly Mexican cheese. So they are blended together here, and together they are going to give the perfect salty, stretchy, cheesy pull to the center of our arepas. Okay, so let's get the dough out of the bowl here, and it should stick to itself pretty well. As you see, got just a little bit in there. Form it into a ball, and we need to make this into 16 equal parts. The easiest way to do this, pat it a little bit, because of course it needs to be kneaded. And, okay, get it into a nice circle and use a pastry cutter. Okay, now we have 2. Teach your kids about math here, fractions, like pies. Okay, 8, and then we're gonna go around. I should have massed up my pastry cutter, huh? You live and you learn. Okay, there we go. So I can put these little triangles back into the bowl when I'm not working with them so that I have a clean workspace. This dough is the perfect consistency to work with. You can knead the dough all together, or what I prefer doing is kneading it while it is in its little form. It's just a little bit more manageable. A little bit more masa out there, okay? Like this. Okay, form it into, flying dough, watch out. Form it into a nice little pancake. It doesn't have to be perfect. These are perfect in their imperfection. It's going to be delicious no matter what shape it is, okay? Get a second piece of dough. Now, since we cut them the way that we did, I lost the tip of that one. Since we cut them the way that we did, these should all be a similar size and shape because they are equal in amount. Go ahead and form that one. Doesn't have to be perfect. Pat the dough. Stick it in my hands. Okay, get a nice hefty helping of your cheese because this is, probably a little bit too much there. Oops. You know I like cheese. It's like garlic. Can you ever really have enough? Okay. And then put it over the top and pinch together the edges. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. It is all perfectly fine in its imperfection. Okay, little karate chop to the ends there. I'm gonna go like this just to seal it up. There is an art form to this. There are people in Colombia and Venezuela that make the perfect little arepas. Some of them aren't cheese-filled. These are con queso, so they are cheese-filled. You can also make them without cheese, and that way they are perfect for little sandwiches. Okay, so we have our arepa patty. I'm gonna continue with the rest of our dough. This will make 8 arepas, obviously 16 pieces of dough. And then I'll show you how to cook them. We are ready to cook our arepas, and you have 2 different options to do this. I like using a griddle because I can very accurately control the heat and I have a better surface space, a larger surface space to work with. You could also do this in a traditional skillet. I am using butter as my grease for the griddle, and because I control the heat, I am doing it at 325. The reason for that is that butter's smoke point when it starts burning is at 350. So I'm going just a tad below that where I still have a nice heat and sizzle. Everybody loves a nice butter sizzle, right? But it's not going to burn on me. As soon as it melts, go ahead and plop one of your arepas right on there. Do that with another. My spacing wasn't great here. If I'd planned this a little bit better, I could have gotten all 8 on the same skillet at the same time. Woo. I'm gonna get one more on here. Glad that sprayed in that direction and not towards me. Flatten them out a little bit more as they cook. Depending on how thick your arepas are, these are gonna take anywhere from 4 to 5 minutes on each side to get fully done. Remember, the center is just cheese, so that doesn't need to cook all the way. If you're making a big batch, you can put your oven on warm, about 175 to 200 degrees. Put them on a wire rack on a rimmed baking sheet. The reason for this is that if they're directly onto the baking sheet, you won't get that nice crunchy exterior. They'll start to get soggy. So as they finish, put them on that wire rack, put them in the oven on warm, make the rest of them, and your cheese will stay nice and gooey while you prepare your whole batch. When you flipped them and both sides are a nice golden brown, perfect. You get that little crunch on the exterior, you know they're done. And there you go, foodie friends. We have a lovely plate of arepas con queso to enjoy with our fresh chimichurri sauce. I wish you could smell this. It truly smells delicious. I have all the cheeses. It's nice and salty. It is nice and bready. And I am going to probably eat this whole plate all by myself. From my kitchen to yours, have a great day.